Welcome to Scrolling to Death. I'm Nikki, and today I'm joined by Amy Neville, founder of the Alexander Neville Foundation. And Amy, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we were introduced through Laura Marquez Garrett, who's a wonderful human. She's an attorney who works for the Social Media Victims Law Center and is an attorney on the case Neville et al. Versus Snap. And that Neville would refer to you, right, Amy?
It would.
So I was wondering if you can tell listeners who are listeners here are parents who are concerned about social media, and I think it's important for us to know about the harms that social media can expose our children to. So can you tell us about what happened to your son Alexander and why you've joined together with other parents to sue Snap?
Sure. Long story short, Alex lived for 14 years. I feel like I could talk about him for at least 14 years at this point, but we'll keep it brief. Long story short, Alexander was a very curious kiddo. And we always knew that this kid was going to have the experimental phase, as a lot of teenagers do. And we thought we were prepared for that. We learned about drugs, we checked social media, we talked to him about these things. But lo and behold, the day came and something was off. And I asked him, like, what's going on? Are you using something? I want to take you to the doctor. No, mom, I was up late. I ate something bad. And of course, 14 is the height of puberty. So these mood swings he was having were on par for his personality. But about a day and a half later, he came back to us and he said, okay, I've got to talk to you guys. And he proceeded to tell us three key things. It was a lengthy conversation, but three key things came out of that. One was, I wanted to experiment with Oxy. I got it from a dealer on Snapchat. It has a hold on me and I don't know why. And so we sprang into action. Like the following morning, we called a treatment place to get him in. We went about they needed to call me back. And so we went about our day and did all the normal things. And, Alex went and delivered his eBay packages. He had an eBay business at the time, skateboarded, played video games. He and his dad went out to lunch. But late in the day, he wanted to go see some friends. And then he came home and we said goodnight. And that was literally the last time I saw him alive. Sometime after 9:00, Alex took the pill that took his life. And excuse me. First, I thought we were dealing with one weird off situation. Like how could he have died? Like this doesn't make any sense, right? How would one Oxy have killed him? And that's the day we learned about fentanyl. And at first I didn't think much about the Snapchat piece to all of it. I just, like I said, I thought this was some weird one-off situation. But as the days progressed, I started meeting families who lost their kids through drugs purchased on Snapchat. And I very quickly realized this is a thing. This is something that is happening to children all across the country. Like families like myself are waking up and finding their kids dead in the bedroom. This what used to be you'd have to go to like a scary place. There was a stereotype attached to it. It's in our kids' bedrooms now 24/7, right there in their pocket. And so we started really exploring that. It really hit me, though. About 2 months later, I was at lunch with one of his friends, and I asked this person, hey, do you know where he got it? And they turned over Snapchat information. And that's when I was really like, okay, this is a problem, and it needs to be looked at. Because, at the time, even though we were spot checking social media and having the internet go off at our house at a certain time every night, no one was talking about the drug emoji code. These social media companies had us believing that the harms we needed to look for were bullies and sexual predators. And we looked for those things. So had I seen any of the drug emoji code, I probably wouldn't have known what I was looking at the time.
What's a drug emoji code? I never heard of that.
So you can quickly just type into your browser drug emoji code and DEA, some information from the DEA will come up. And it's basically emojis that signify certain drugs. One of the biggest things is the plug. That means that somebody's the hookup. You've got the little icicles or snowflakes. That means cocaine. There is literally a blue circle with an M on it. And so that signifies these pills that kids are looking for. So, if parents are looking at their kids' social media apps, look for those things in the profile of the people that they're connected with, even in their own kids' profile for that matter.
And Snapchat is not moderating Isn't it their job to know what kids are using to indicate certain things,
Well,
dangerous things like that?
you would think it would be in their best interest to look for those things, and they
Hmm.
claim a lot of things now that that are not verifiable. So Snapchat comes out and says, "Oh, we're removing 90% of all the drug content that's getting removed. We're finding it ourselves." Well, 90% of what number, right?
Right,
So they
right.
get to self-report, but at this point, so much death and destruction, and not even with just drugs, has happened on this platform that they should not have the right to self-report right now. They need third-party independent verification. I don't even remember what your original question was there. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I
What a
get
tangent.
like they're reporting out, correct, that they are
Yeah,
moderating and removing drug related content.
that's what they say, and I'm sure they are to some degree, but is it
Hmm.
to the degree that they're saying? And it's still not enough. I
Hmm.
mean, you probably heard there are more clients to the Social Media Victims Law Center all the time.
Right.
I met families over the summer who lost kids through drugs purchased on Snapchat as early as this last year. So it's still happening. It's still a thing in that space.
Hmm.
It has not gone away, and so we need to be vigilant. We cannot back down from this fight.
Right. And you had a big win recently, right? In the lawsuit. Can you tell me about that?
What? So as maybe people don't know, or suing Snapchat is a long shot. Was a long shot, should I say? I always kind of thought that we would be paving the way for other people to come on and sue.
Hmm.
We wouldn't actually be able to be heard, but somebody after us would. But lo and behold, the judge in our case ruled that we can move into discovery. He determined there's not enough information to really understand how Snapchat works or what's really going on there, whether it's a product or a service. And so uh, we're going into discovery, which to me was like my wildest dream.
Yeah.
And here we are. It's really, hey, I do not take it lightly.
No.
It is going to be tough. It's going to be hard. Snapchat is going to be unkind, I'm certain. So
Hmm.
um, it has to
But
be done.
but what will be revealed is going to save so many, I think, kids' lives, right? Because
Absolutely. And I really think that once we get into this discovery process, it is going to be much darker
mhm.
and much more horrific than we could have ever imagined.
With all of the Meta lawsuits and some discovery happening there and some whistleblowers and concerning things being revealed, I think this is going to dive even deeper. With the Snap's dangerous features are horrific, and there's no benefit to kids of these disappearing
Absolutely.
messages, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm so happy for you guys, and I hope that all of the parents are feeling some hope that you'll be helping other people
Yeah. I
through
mean,
this
getting into
effort.
discovery to me is the win, right?
Yeah.
Whatever happens at the end of this case, discovery is a huge win. And
Hmm.
probably that's the most important thing that's going to happen in all of this.
Oh, great, Amy! Congratulations on that. Yeah, and I think parents generally just don't know that this is happening when it comes to drugs being sold through Snapchat. I've heard someone say it's like getting a pizza delivered. You can just get a pill delivered right to your door. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely delivered right to our house. Our kids don't even have to go anywhere to get these things. It can be mailed to them. It it can be dropped off at the park down the street in a bush, and then your kid can just ride on their skateboard down there to pick it up. There's so many different ways that it's coming right to your front door.
Hmm. Okay, and is it from what you're seeing, random drug dealers contacting kids, or is it friends from school, or a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of everything. So
Hmm.
through our foundation, we do drug prevention education. So if you book me for drug prevention education, you get social media harms with that. If you book me for social media harms
Hmm.
education, you're going to get drug prevention
Yep.
education with that.
Yep.
But and all of that education stems from meeting with young people.
Hmm.
So through these conversations, I've learned a lot. They really are like this boots on the ground,
Yeah.
up close and personal view of what's happening. And so in the beginning of this work, it was these kids didn't know about fentanyl. They just thought these were all legitimate prescription pills.
Hmm.
These days, kids know that fentanyl's out there, but they think it's its own drug, and that everything else as advertised is the legitimate drug. And that's just not the case. They are all counterfeit made with fentanyl. I can't stress that enough.
Hmm.
But a couple things that I learned in this whole process with these young people is one of the first things was that these drug dealers become friends with them in this space. Maybe it's the quick add feature. Maybe they have friends in common, and somehow they're now friends in this space,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually even irrelevant at this point. But and these dealers aren't offering them things on the first try. What
Mm-hmm.
happens is they come in and they groom them. Think sexual predator behavior, just like that. They're telling them how cool and smart and funny they are, and they seem to have a lot of influence with their friends. And our kids are vulnerable. They're teens, right? And they want more clout. They want to be treated with more respect. And this drug dealer fills that void.
Yeah.
And so what our kid wouldn't do on interaction number one, they're maybe doing down 20, 25 down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hurting them because they believe this person is their friend. Those things that our kids never thought they'd do before, we don't think they'll ever do before, they're being groomed into it. And then even more disturbing, more recently, that's come up in the last couple of listening sessions, is that a young person puts out on social media, having a bad day. Like, this is the example, their dog died. My dog died. I'm feeling so sad. I've had the dog since I was born. Drug dealer sees this direct messages them and says, hey, I see you're having a bad day. What's going on? Oh, my dog died. I'm really sad. I'm going to miss that dog so much. It was my dog was my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry you're feeling so bad, but hey, I have something for that. And what happens? We're in low decision-making moments. We're feeling bad, and they just want to feel better. They're so sad. They take them up on it. Some people, it's a pint of ice cream. Some people, it can end up being a deadly substance. And so it's really disgusting how these apps give that kind of access to our kids.
Yeah. Allows them to be preyed on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Totally to be taken advantage of.
Right. Yeah. So, and a couple parents reached out, like, how do kids even go about buying drugs? I don't understand how this works. Are drug dealers just randomly contacting them? And it makes sense because
There's
they're
so many
allowed this
different ways.
platform. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a whole spectrum of ways that it's happening.
Yeah. But it's uber accessible. Like,
It's super
it's
accessible. And I make no bones about it. My child wanted to experiment. My kid falls into that, somebody who wanted to experiment. But I've met other families where they couldn't afford a prescription painkiller after the child had a tooth pulled, and so they go without, and the kid puts it out on social media, they need something, and now they're gone. And all they were looking for was a legitimate painkiller for pain that they were in.
Oh my God. And that's a misconception, is that these kids that are doing drugs are, drug addicts or druggies or losers or whatever, but it's like normal people.
They're not even getting that chance, right?
Yeah.
I believe Alex was probably 10 days he was in this experimental phase. Everything happens really fast. One, because of the access, and two, because of how potent fentanyl is.
Mm-hmm. How many, do you have any data on what percentage of these drugs are laced, or what we should be?
Oh, 100% of the drugs out there are made with fentanyl. If it says Oxy, it's fentanyl. If it says it's Adderall, it's fentanyl. It is a 100% across the board situation. And then you've got things like cocaine and methamphetamines and mushrooms. Everything else is getting laced with it.
Holy crap.
Mm-hmm. It's horrific.
Why? Because it's cheap? Why are they?
Exactly. It's super duper cheap. So profits are really high. They make a lot of money off of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's highly, highly addictive. So, like Alex told us, it has a hold on me and I don't know why. Alex looked at how much to take for his size without getting hooked on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he was interested in doing. And so it didn't make sense on why he would have been hooked on it at that point.
Okay.
But it's because it was fentanyl.
Okay, so you spearheaded a new documentary, like short documentary film called Come Back Home, and I watched it earlier this week and found it to be so powerful. You come at it from the perspective of the siblings, which is just so tough to see. But I walked away like with my eyes wide open. Like, this crisis with fentanyl is serious and real and can affect anyone, like not just what you would assume, drug addicts or unhoused people or whatever. So can you tell listeners about the film and how,
Yeah. So it's really important to me and our foundation. Our work that we do is primarily with youth. I speak at conferences, I speak to work groups, you name it, I will talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
But my heart and soul of what I do is really the teens and their families.
Yeah.
And I really believe at the end of the day, kids are going to get us out of this mess, right? They're going to be the ones that can really take back the power from these social media companies.
Yeah.
They are the ones that are going to tell us enough is enough with these things. And we need to provide them platforms to do that. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
what this film is. So it brings in several siblings who talk about their loved one, talk about why reaching out for a substance is not a good idea these days, and
Mm-hmm.
things that you can do to help yourself.
Yeah.
And they were incredible. They were absolutely incredible. Like they are now part of my, they're part of our story, and we're part of their story. And I'm so
Yeah.
grateful.
They're so strong to be able to sit and do that. I was,
Amazing.
yeah, tearing up the whole time. And I'm just more, I've been talking to some young people as well. Lately, I've been focusing on cyberbullying within gaming and Discord and some of
Mhm.
those platforms, and just the ruthless kill yourself language that goes
Mhm.
on in those platforms. And I was curious to talk to gamers about, young adolescent male gamers about this. And I am just blown away at how smart and kind, and like, I feel like I'm friends with them. Now, I was just like, you guys, the, it was just interesting how they, anyway, this is a side note, but they were
They
able to, yeah, go ahead.
they want to be heard. And
Yeah.
so, we're at this disadvantage as adults these days
Mm-hmm.
because we're trying to guide our kids through their teenage years with a lived experience we've never had. And so
Correct.
we really need their help in
Mm-hmm.
this space to really understand what's going on. But can I cuss on here?
Yes.
In my very first listening session I had,
Mm-hmm.
one of the youth said to me, just don't bullshit me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I have made that I made a commitment to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell these kids the truth. We talk about it. Every presentation I go and do, I hear from kids afterwards wanting naloxone because they're worried about their friends or their extended circle of friends, or they're hanging out in places where these things are happening,
Mm-hmm.
or they're worried about their own parents' drug use, or how can they really anonymously report cyberbullying or any inappropriate content that they're seeing. Like, they want to do something. But one of the most interesting things that has come up has been so Snapchat has a snap streak, right?
Mm-hmm.
That gets to come back every single day. And that's really so Snap can collect their paycheck on them, right? But they're like, I hate it. But they have the compulsion to go do it. So Snapchat has created this compulsion in with our kids that they almost feel like they have no control in going back and showing up and making sure they don't break their Snap streak. So it is just, it's sick. It's sick
It's
and it's dark all around.
it's like blatantly encouraging addiction in children. It's
Mm-hmm.
in that
Absolutely.
is so disgusting. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could talk to someone at Snapchat who's in these conversations, deciding these things, because it's
Uh,
insane.
well, I'm going to tell you, our first, we've been there, we've been down that path. And the first conversation we had with them, it was spring of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, there were several families on there. Half of us loved what we heard, and half of us were like, what in the hell is going on? This is a bunch of crap. And obviously I fall in the latter half of that.
Mm-hmm.
And to summarize, they came at us and said, so sorry for your loss. We had no idea this was such a problem, which is a lie, right? In
Right?
my
They
opinion,
know.
that's a lie because you see it showing up in the news that you have a drug problem on your platform. This starts in 2017. Like, and if you don't get a handle on it, it's going to be out of control. And now we're all the fallout from that, from them ignoring those messages.
So messed up.
It is so messed up.
Just lying.
Yeah.
They're just lying. It's really disappointing. And parents, unfortunately, are faced with the decision of not just when to get our kids a phone, but every kid's going to need a phone. But do we have to give them social media? Do we have to introduce it to them? Is it our responsibility? Because they're going to become an adult and probably sign up. So should we
Mhm.
be teaching them how to use it safely
We
as
do need some sort of literacy, right? But I
mm-hmm.
think really, you know, but the story that really strikes me there is, you had Kristen Bright on,
Yeah.
is Carson. I share Carson in my, we do a social media and self-esteem presentation, and Carson is part of that presentation. And I
Mm-hmm.
always tell everybody, Carson, things that his mom has told me, that Carson felt like he was the last kid in the world to get a phone and to get social media.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Carson was 16 when he got on social media, when he got his first phone and got on social media. And the kids are always like, oh, wow, that's so late. Like, in their mind, it's forever.
Right.
Like, and I'll ask them, how old do you think Carson was when he died? And then they're like, they think about it, like, Carson was 16.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and Kristen and her husband, they prepared him. They did the
Yes.
things any of us would expect a parent
Yep.
to do. And here they are, And so it, it's hard. It's situational, right? I think the emotional maturity might really kick in around 17, 18. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen some studies where if you can put it off to about 17 years old, they don't care about it as much,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But you also see instances where kids who aren't on social media are still victims of social media because somebody on Instagram's taking their picture, saying disparaging things about them and posting it.
Yeah.
So our kids do need to have some level of literacy around social media, whether they're
Mm-hmm.
using it or not. But
Yes.
the whole goal is to really, hopefully, to get them to not care about it, to not hinge their whole identity on what's happening in those spaces,
Yeah.
and that likes on social media are not real likes and not likes
No.
in real life.
No. No. And they need to get value and self-esteem from their
Mhm.
in-person relationships and their accomplishments outside of the
Yep.
screen. And you hear from kids, I think 17 and 18, where they see how it's affecting their friends negatively and their mental health and their activity levels. And they're like, oh, I actually like don't want to be like that kid.
I will tell you, I had an interesting experience at one of my presentations recently on the social media and self-esteem. And I had them do this social media self-assessment at the beginning to kind of see where they fall in their
Mm-hmm.
use. And it's for their own private use. No, they don't have to share it with anybody. But there was a kid in the class that was like, oh, I don't have social media. My parents don't allow me to have it. I'm like, okay, well, don't worry about it. Just listen. Maybe there's some things you can learn as we go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we get to the end of the presentation, and the kids in the class were, by the end of the class, they were apologizing to him for giving him, I'm going to cry over
Oh
this.
my God.
Excuse me.
It's okay.
They were apologizing to this boy over giving him a hard time for not having these things.
Oh.
They realized how they were may have been contributing negatively to his mental health because he didn't have a phone and he wasn't allowed on social media. And in that moment, after everything they learned in that conversation, they had this urge to apologize to him. And that to me was a huge moment, a huge moment.
Yeah. Because I have a friend I was with recently, her 12-year-old, she just gave her Snapchat because all of her friends are on Snapchat and she was feeling left out. And prior to this, they would try to bring her in and send her screenshots of their conversations on Snapchat because she wasn't on it to try to involve her. But it just got difficult for that mom. And so what would you tell parents? All the
It's
time,
so
parents are
tough,
saying,
right?
I don't want my kid to be left out.
I hear that all the time. Well, if we're really going to go down that path, we
Mm-hmm.
have to have an account. We have to follow the things that our kids are following. We have to be friends with their friends. I mean, that's got to be a part of the rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of parents like, oh, that they don't want to do that because it's time consuming, and now
Sure.
they've got a news feed of all this stuff that their kids looking at, and they're really not interested. But
Yeah.
we need to be interested, right? We need to follow these things. We need to see what kind of content's getting pushed at our kid. We need to spot check the phone, but know what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
That just has to be part of the agreement.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be a non-negotiable.
and Laura shared to review is it For You page on Snap, or is it on Snapchat, or is it like the
Oh yeah,
recommendations?
yeah, For You.
Yeah.
They're
And
called.
like look through all the feeds for like
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes or
Mm-hmm.
so. You can't just do a quick scroll because you need to get an idea of really all of what they're seeing, and to do it regularly because the algorithm can change very, very quickly
Yeah, very
within
quickly. And I
a
think
day.
too that another strategy is to make your kid follow pages like the Alexander Neville Foundation. Follow these other groups that are putting out this, drug prevention content, social media harms content. So they're at
Mm-hmm.
least getting that showing up too, along with all the other stuff.
Yeah, we need to be informed. Why can't we inform our kids in age appropriate levels about the risks and the harms and tell them some of these kind of sad stories? I think it's important. I mean, even my daughter at 8, I'm very, very lightly. She knows what I'm doing here. And so she doesn't listen to full episodes, but she knows sort of what's going on and has an idea. She understands that social media can be
Well,
bad.
and it's interesting. So I also have an elementary school presentation. It's obvious. It's very different than what I obviously do with community and
Yeah.
high schools and middle schools, but it's about making healthy choices for our brains and our bodies. And I will tell you, I show these pictures. Is this a good choice for your brain or body? And sometimes there's a picture of a person sleeping and they're like, oh yeah, that's good for us. Then the next picture is somebody sleeping, but there's a phone in the bed next to them and they're
Mm-hmm.
asleep with the phone in the bed.
Mhm.
And they're like, yeah, well, they're sleeping. It's good. I said, yeah, but is there anything that could be harmful? Oh, yeah, there's their phone. And then I'm like, okay, guys, true confession time. Who takes a phone or device to bed with them? Like kindergartners, half the class's hand goes up. I'm like, so are you reading? Like, what are you? Yeah, my mom and dad tell me just to watch something on it until I fall asleep. And so we try to make this agreement. I've already confessed to them that I love to watch TV all day long. And so
Mhm.
we make this agreement like, I'm going to try to not watch TV all day when I get home today after this presentation. Can you
Mhm.
promise me that you will try to go to bed without your phone tonight? And so, uh, trying to get to open the door to those conversations, because it's, we should not, none of us should be going to bed with our phones, right? We need to
No.
go to bed, turn it off. What is it? I think it's about 40 minutes to an hour before you want to go to sleep. Turn it off, no contact.
Yeah.
Give your brain that break. And so we need to do that for our kids. It
You-
blows my mind. And these kids tell on their families like you wouldn't believe. I show up a picture of the pills,
Mhm.
and these kids have seen these pills, whether it be on the news or an older sibling in the house had them, or their uncle lives with them, is selling them out of the bedroom. You name it. I've heard it from elementary school kids. We have got to talk about these things because they are seeing it whether we like it or not.
There's a lot there. I mean, these young kids are scrolling on their phone and watching videos at bedtime on their
Yeah.
own in their rooms. I
Yep.
don't.
I know. I about fell out. My kids are still at that age where you didn't get a phone when you were in elementary school, right? It still
Mhm.
wasn't a thing yet. But I mean, it's these. Every time I ask a kindergarten class, and half the class will go up with their hands go up. It blows
Mhm.
my mind every time.
Okay. So, right. So if you're within your family, so we don't have iPads or tablets at home. We have very restricted TV time. They're not going to have phone. I mean, and we have options with kid safe. I don't like that word, but phone products
Mhm.
available now, like Bark and Pinwheel. There's watches if you need to know where they are, and maybe call them really quick. So we have options, uh, but that doesn't mean that other families are going to make
Right.
similar decisions. So, there's a kid in my son's class who I heard through the grapevine, might not include this information, but um, has an iPad at home and watches in first grade, watches porn on his iPad, naked people having sex, and his older brother kind of told on him. And I'm like, this kid is in so now do I have to have a conversation with my 6-year-old about
Mhm.
porn? Like,
Right. They're
because he
talking to each
might
other.
see it on his friends.
Well, I will tell you, Alexander was doing homework one night when he was probably about 7 years old. And there was this file on the right, and it was something he came across online. It was pornography. But he was online doing homework, and somehow this came to be.
Was that a school device or a personal?
It was an at-home device. He was doing
Okay.
it at home. So,
Okay.
and I'm sitting there in the kitchen making dinner or whatever, and I don't even know. I mean, I wish I knew now. I knew then what
Hmm.
I know now, right? Because
Yeah.
I would have
Oh,
investigated, like, how did this get here?
yeah.
Somehow it got there, and I just thought it was something weird that happened, and so we
Hmm.
got rid of it right away. And he wasn't even really sure what he saw at that age.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
talked about it at that point. We had to have a
Yeah.
conversation about it.
Right.
Uh, but so yeah, I don't even know, at this point.
Yeah. And someone messaged me yesterday, was like, how do I may restrict within my home, but my kids are going to see things on, they have a friend with unrestricted
Mhm.
access on their phone or their iPad. And so I was like, you can have a conversation with that other kid's parent and kind of compare
Yeah.
notes, but number one, make sure you're talking with your kid about what
Mhm.
they might see and what's
Mhm.
appropriate, and that they and reassure them they can always come to you if they see something that is strange or uncomfortable, and that they're not going to be in trouble, and you're not going to punish them if they see
And
something.
And that's usually when I give presentations to parents, and I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
now I know you guys want to go home and take Snapchat off your kid's phone.
Yep.
That's only going to create more problems. So
Yep.
ask your kid, what have you seen about drugs on Snapchat? Have you seen
Hmm.
anything? I just learned this thing tonight. And the way our kid answers that question is going to give us any red flags.
Yeah.
But sometimes kid hasn't seen anything, but it opens the door to conversation. But, I have been receiving inappropriate pictures, or so-and-so's getting bullied. It can
Hmm.
open a door to bigger things.
Yeah. Okay. So you think that social media needs to be introduced, or at least education around it, maybe safe use at a certain age, older teen years.
Well, I would love if I could plan it, if I could
Mm-hmm.
design it myself, it would be kids not getting onto their phones and apps and that type of thing until they're about 17 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say that as a mother of a 15-year-old who has a phone, and but she's not active on social media. She doesn't really even care about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is great at this
Yeah.
point in my life. Thank God,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Seriously.
But if we could put it off till 17, but give them some social media literacy along the way of things that they could be experiencing in their life,
Mm-hmm.
through other people. And then also, if we are, 13 is the age everything's recommended for, right? So we have to hit it really hard as we ramp up to actually, if you're the parent that's going to let them have it at 13, we have to hit it hard
Mm-hmm.
and really understand the rules and set up some really big expectations and non-negotiables right at the beginning of the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. So that way you can carry that through until there's that point when they're 17, 18 years old and you don't have to babysit the social media anymore.
Yeah. I just think 13, if you're giving them social media at 13, they're growing up way too fast. Like,
They really are. But these companies have also duped us into it, right?
yeah.
They look how fun and silly and great this is. Look at these fun filters. Who doesn't want to do that, right? It's
Yeah.
fun and it's silly. And my kids first got on social media and started their Snapchat account. I think it was like around 11, 12 years old. Alex first got it. But the director at the YMCA that he was going a couple days after school, had it. And she was a very good friend of mine. And she
Mm-hmm.
liked to connect with the kids through that she had at the YMCA.
Okay.
So our introduction to it was this fun, silly way to keep connected. And
Yeah.
I know I sound naive now, but I had no idea of this deep, dark side.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hear from people, oh, well, you just need to take it away from your kid. I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
These devices, these apps have all been designed to keep our kids hooked. And, take the phone away for 24 hours. If your kid has a compulsion to get that phone,
Mm-hmm.
we got a bigger issue here.
Yeah.
They can't go without it for 24 hours, or you've dropped them off at school and they're freaking out because they don't have their phone. We got a bigger issue here.
Mm-hmm.
And we really need to explore this really down the lines of addiction
Yeah.
and help our kids out.
Absolutely. So would you say for parents that have younger kids that are coming up to these ages where they're going to want social media, would you just say avoid Snapchat? Like maybe try
I
out
would say
Instagram?
I would avoid Instagram too.
Yeah.
Instagram's no better. I mean,
Right.
go on. Fair Play has a great study on the anorexia bubble. You could look it up, Fair Play anorexia
Mm-hmm.
bubble,
Okay.
and see what happens to our kids and how they get groomed on there. Through the ads and everything. When my daughter was 14, the algorithm knows she's 14. I swear it was like the week of her 14th birthday. She's like, Mom, she shows me some ads. It's diet pills and push-up bras.
Holy crap.
Why? Why does a 14-year-old need that?
Oh my God. Yeah, there's some crazy studies, and we talk a lot about Meta on this podcast and the dangerous content, that the algorithms and the addictiveness and all that fun stuff. Okay. And I'm lucky that, I just feel so grateful my kids are 8 and under, and I just am able to have some time here. Do you feel like are you supporting any legislation that you feel like would help the status?
COSA all the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I support the Kids Online Safety Act all the
Yeah.
way. It's got the duty of care in there. It's got the third party auditing in there.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two key pieces that I think are the most important. We did a study through the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It's on our website, actually. And we wrote a paper at the end, Best Practices to End Drug Trafficking on Social Media.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the two big things that came out of that, was the duty of care and the third party auditing. So
Okay.
it supports that.
Oh yeah, and we talked to. I did an interview with Alex Frazier from Issue 1, and we talked a lot about COSA, and he went into the benefits, but also some of the pushback that people give, and he kind of addressed those things. So if people want a good snapshot of all of that around COSA, please listen in on that episode. So is there anything else, Amy, that you would want to share with parents who are listeners here?
I want parents to really take a look and know that I know you're doing the best that you can. We're all doing the best that we can.
Yes.
And these companies have made it really difficult for us to really to do the greatest job that we can as parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all bought into a bill of goods, whatever it was 10, 12 years ago now, maybe even later. The timeline's a little fuzzy in my brain, but
Yeah.
we bought into it. And now that we know better, we have to do better. We really have got to take back the power from these companies and get our kids on a really good path with their mental and social health.
Yeah, I agree. Where can listeners find out more about the Alexander Neville Foundation?
Our website is anfhelp.org.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Is there any social media platform that you guys are active on that anyone can follow along?
I know, I feel gross even saying it, but yes. You have to be, right? Because that's how you connect with people and people find your information these days. Yes. It's like such a trap.
I know.
But we are on Instagram.
Okay.
And we are on Facebook, and everything's at ANF Help. That's our handle and everything. Okay. So young people really keep up with us through Instagram, and parents keep up with us on Facebook.
Okay, perfect. And I'll put those links in the episode notes. And I wonder, before we end, if you could share with us a favorite memory you have of Alexander. If you can, you don't have to, but
I have a couple. Just before he died, actually. Alex was my chip and salsa buddy. We would enjoy chips and salsa together, and we'd make homemade salsa, and I had made some. It was the Sunday. It was the day that he, poured his heart out to us. But before he had poured his heart out to us, and I'm eating the homemade salsa I had just made, and I remember he walks over to me, and I'm leaning on the counter, and he leans on the counter right next to me. He's like, "You're holding out on me." We sat there for like half an hour, just chit chatting and eating chips and salsa. And then the other memory is the last time he hugged me. It was the Saturday before he died, and he was trying to butter me up to invite a friend over. Put his arm around me and so I was able to put my arm around him and kind of snuggle into him and smell him. And like I remember it so vividly now, back on that. And so those are some favorite memories. I mean, there's so many. We really had a great time as a family. So many of our interests, experiences that we went out and did, vacations, etc., revolved around Alexander's interests. And so we were able to go on some really great adventures because of him.
He sounds so wonderful and sweet. My son is 6 and already not giving me hugs anymore. And I'm like,
wait till he's older. My favorite times were too, like we'd be walking side by side and Alex would accidentally reach out and hold my hand just out of muscle memory. And I would never, ever say anything. And then at 14 years old, we'd be walking, holding hands. And I'm like, don't anyone say anything.
Don't talk.
Don't talk about it.
Amy, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I know that this is going to affect a lot of parents, and I know it takes a lot of strength to go through this story again and again and again. And
we have to. It's too important.
I just honor you and all of the families involved in this lawsuit against SNAP, and all of the families that have been negatively affected by their children's social media use. So I will close out by saying thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Scrolling to Death. You can connect with us on Instagram. You can connect with us, but definitely just listen and follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and that's where you get all the long form good content. So, Amy, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Nikki.